What's going on, gamers? Here we are back with some more Outriders, and today I'm going to be going over the full build guide for this fella just here, the Acari pyromancer damage tank. Crazy, just insane fun build if you're after a build that can clear all content to gold very nicely, very easily, solo or in a team, and just out and out fun. Then stay tuned, that's coming up next. Welcome back all you guys and girls, as always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, and of course a lot more Outriders and all the latest and greatest games coming soon. Then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon. I'm currently covering a little bit of Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, and I'm hoping to cover Dark Alliance once it's out as well, because that looks really good. But for now, you're here to see what this build entails. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck on a little bit of footage to show you what it's about, and then after that we'll crack on with the full build guide if you've enjoyed what you see.
I'm not the only one here. They didn't make it. The survivors found a pod, but they got caught before they could open it.
That is a shame. Whatever you can recover from that pod.
Right, so from that, hopefully you can see just how crazy viable this build is. It's ridiculous fun. It's so good to use. It just feels amazing. I'm not going to lie, I've created a lot of builds. This one right here feels really strong. You're just so viable. It is so fun to use. Now one thing I must note is that I have had to chuck this on really fast. Basically I've only had a few hours to assemble this because I had a build ready for today, and then obviously they brought a patch out and they've changed everything. So I've had to chuck this build on. If you can tweak it to make it better, go for it. This right here is viable enough to clear any content in the game, but if you feel you've got a mod or I've missed something somewhere, then just change it up to your liking. Right, so first off, and this is absolutely amazing in this build, it really is, Air to the Desert. This right here comes with armor piercing, status power, which we'll get into later. You want that on. Whenever you can grab status power, grab it, and skills life leech. For me, these three are just absolutely perfect for this build, exactly what I was after, and works amazing. Plus I really like Air to the Desert, so it's a nice change up. Obviously it comes with Sandstorm, shots conjure a sandstorm, dealing 232,619 damage over a 5-second period. It's a really nice mod. It's not the strongest in the game, but it is fun to use. It does do a lot of damage, and it's good to apply to targets that you need to kind of finish off or that are over in the distance. Now next up, and you either love this or hate it because you have it or don't, and that's Fortress. Receive up to 43% damage bonus based on your armour. That right there is just the Anomaly gold standard. Chuck it on and you'll be getting 43% extra damage on everything you do at endgame, as long as your armour is over like 35k I believe. Honestly, I've chucked anything on here, don't worry about that, you won't be using it. For the third, again, you probably won't be using it unless you want to put in a Moaning Winds on your handgun. If you want to do that, chuck it on and you'll be able to clear content faster, but most of the time you won't even need it with this. Now next up, and we've got the 3-piece acari, so pretty standard. We've got the head, we've got the chest, and we've got the legs. Now the helmet of the Acari comes with Anomaly, Skills Life Leech and Status Power. Whenever you can get Status Power, like I said, grab it, it works really well in this build. What we've got for mods is Fire Tsunami. Heatwave increases the width of the firewall. The reason we're keeping that on is just to basically capture more in our heatwave, meaning they're going to get extra damage when we hit them with our faserbeam, and that's what this build revolves fully around. This is a faserbeam build. Trust me, the buff that they've actually done in game warrants using it now. I would go as far as to say it's the best move for pyromancer by a long way, and it's just so much fun. Next up, we've got Pure Power. Faserbeam increases the skill's damage by 48,462. You could even get away with taking that off. If you wanted to take that off and you wanted to put on something like a Captain Hunter, you very well could, and it may actually work in your favour. Like I said, I've had to chuck this together quite fast, so I wasn't able to test things quite as much as I usually do, but that or Captain Hunter I think will probably be best in slot. Next up, and just down here, we've got Armour of the Acari. Now this comes with Anomaly Power, Skills Life Leech and cooldown reduction. The ones we're trying to mingle into our build is cooldown reduction as much as possible and status power as much as possible. Skills Life Leech is also absolutely vital, as it's what gives us our regen, and it just keeps this build completely topped up and alive. The mod I've chucked on for survivability is Damage Absorber. Increases your armour by 52,659 and resistance by 10%. Now in all honesty, if you're playing further back, you might easily get away with not having this on. You really can. If you want to put another damage mod on, for example a Captain Hunter or something in its stead, go for it, you can do that, but you'll have to play further back and there is the slight possibility that you'll fall over. With this build how it is, you're so tanky, so viable, and it is so fun with all the damage that you're doing that I found I could put this on quite easily, so I'm leaving that on. Next up we've got Tidal Wave. Heatwave, the skill can be activated one more time before triggering the cooldown. Obviously with that we're going to have the burnt out in our next bit, meaning that it's going to have 25 then 25 again, so 50% extra damage. Chuck that on, 2 heatwaves works out perfect in this build. Next up, with a bit of Anomaly, Skills Life Leech and cooldown reduction, and our mod is Anomaly Echo. Grants 3,276 firepower and 11,484 Anomaly power bonus on skill activation for 15 seconds. Now, not the be all and end all in mods, but it does give us a bit of a boost, and it's either that or kind of reduce the enemy's damage with the weakness one, so we choose this one pretty much at all times. Next up, and we've gone with Healthy Lifestyle. Faserbeam boosts your health regeneration by 50% for 5 seconds after the skill ends. I was trying to make this kind of a tanky, survive near enough everything build. It works, chuck it on. Trust me, if you want a fun build that can just survive everything, chuck that on, you can't go wrong. Next up, and for the gloves, all I've gone for is any that have Anomaly, cooldown and status power. Our mod is Size Matters. Faserbeam increases the beam's radius by 100%. Honestly, I've tried Faserbeam with and without this, I always go back to it. You might not think it's that great, but after testing it out I would definitely say this right here is almost a completely needed vital mod. You clear things much faster just for the sheer fact that you're going to be hitting a lot more targets. Next up, and you've got Bullet Kindling. Deals 20% more damage against enemies afflicted by burn. Obviously you're hitting everything with burn, with this on 20% standard damage. Nice and easy. If again you wanted to swap that out for something, you very well could. There's a few things that you can do with this build to tweak it to your liking. That's what I found on this purple glove, and like I said, I didn't have enough time to change things around, but it still works perfect in slot. Next up, and as you can see, we've got 1 health. The reason for that, like I said, I've made this tanky. So we've gone health, status power and cooldown reduction. Absolutely mint. It means that you will survive, it means that you've got more cooldown, it means you've got more status, and the status power in this, I'll go over in a minute, is absolutely vital. Now this right here is now probably the best, no not probably, it is the best mod in the game for survivability. Volcanic armor. Faserbeam reduces incoming anomaly damage by 65% and weapon damage by 65% when the skill is active. Now to put that in perspective, that's pretty much the same as having golem effect, but you can get the cooldown so low if you wanted to on faserbeam that you would be able to have that up roughly every 4 seconds. You are pretty much invincible unless something crazy happens. I can't see it happening, to be perfectly honest. You have to be stuck in ice for about 5-10 seconds. You're going to survive, especially with the regen going on in this build and the extra health. Look up the top there, 33k health, 105k armor. That gets boosted up even more, and we've got a fair chunk of anomaly, and honestly this tears through content like no other. Now last but definitely not least is Burnt Out. Heatwave. Damaged enemies take 25% more damage for 8 seconds. Like I said, just apply that to any of the guys. Pretty much you're going to be using your heatwaves to boost your anomaly anyway from your 3-piece set on your acari. When you're doing that, you're also going to be making sure they're taking 50% damage. Capture everyone in it. Most of the kind of standard enemies die from the heatwaves because of how much damage you're doing. If they don't, they're going to be the elites, they're going to take 50% extra damage, and then they're just going to die from your phaser beam. Honestly, this build is just that strong. Now, you probably already know, because pretty much everyone does unless you're new to this, but we're using the Acari set to boost our anomaly power. Hit everything with your heat waves and you'll get 50% extra anomaly power. That's for 10 seconds, and if memory serves, I think it stacks up to 200% of your original anomaly power over here, and then all of the buffs and such stack on top of it. Next up is your skills. These right here are just so good, but like I said, it's all about this last one. Faserbeam, faserbeam, faserbeam. Activate this as much as you can. One mod that I should have told you that I couldn't quite fit into the last kind of gear pieces is the cooldown mod. If you can get that 30% extra cooldown on your faserbeam in there somewhere and still have the survivability, do it. It will be so much fun, and you will just be launching this left, right and centre, and that right there will keep you alive anyway. So you may not even need the extra kind of damage absorber, you may be able to swap that in instead. Play a bit safe, make sure you're using this constantly, and you'll probably still survive. Now, the rotation that I tend to use is basically I tend to hit them with my heat waves, get the 50% extra buff, then I pop out a Feed the Flames on one enemy to get the buff to my anomaly, and then I'm going to chuck out a phaser beam. Because you've done that, most of the time, even if you've been hit, you top yourself up with a bit of health, so you're back to full, and then you're into near enough invincible mode. Nice and easy. But honestly, you can do a rotation completely different if you wanted to. If you wanted to start with this to buff your anomaly, then go into heat waves, then go into phaser beam, you very well can as well. Just make sure that you're using these two before you're using this one. You're going to clear content just absolutely ridiculously fast and easy. Now, I've gone with quite a standard Firestorm skill tree because honestly I was finding the survivability really nice, and I just wanted to clear content easy, and I've still got enough damage to not worry about anything. So we've gone health just over here, like I said, as much cooldown as possible. I think our one, if I remember correctly, yeah, we're on 8 seconds, but I haven't been able to use all of my shards. Basically, my shards ran out just before the video when I made the other gear set, so I think your phaser beam will probably be able to get to about 6.5 give or take. So like I said, whenever you can put cooldown in, go for it. Just over here, some more health. Just here, we've got all cooldown 10%. Just next up, we've got Meltdown. Burn afflicted on enemies, deals 20% more damage. Absolutely amazing in this build because of how much extra damage you're getting to everything. And one thing I've just realised that I forgot to go over, if you have a little look, Phaser Beam now has been boosted by 100%, meaning that it's ridiculous. Look at that, 386,000 before we've buffed ourselves with Anomaly, before we've hit that kind of move of Feed the Flames, boosting our Anomaly more, and specking into the middle tree. If you wanted to spec bottom tree and just see how much damage you could do, I'm thinking you could probably hit upwards of 5 million. I really do. It is just ridiculous at the moment, and if you saw my run, we were doing over 3.5 at certain times. Obviously it benefits from status power by 210% as well, so like I said, chuck on as much status power as you can and activate that as often as you can, and you're just going to survive everything whilst melting all of the ads really nicely. Now just here we've gone with a bit more health. Just up here we've gone to the moment burn ends on enemies, it inflicts ash. We're just doing that to go up to the top. Honestly, you don't need that in the slightest, most of the time they're dead anyway. Just over here, absolutely useless for us, a bit more weapon damage, but it has allowed us to go up to the top, meaning we're going to get 45% extra anomaly power when we activate Feed the Flames, and that's exactly what we needed. Now just down here, I always put a bit of resist in my build. I find it just so viable, and just without it I fall over very often against some of the brood mothers and such. Chuck it on, you won't regret it. Little bit more health, and of course increase your anomaly power by 2.5% for each unlocked node of health. Which is why we've gone this tree, because we can be tanky, we can be damaging, we can be near on invincible and have so much fun while we do it. That gives you 12.5% extra anomaly power from going all of the health. Next up, and we've got a little of skills leech, meaning that we survive even more. Next up, increase your max health. Just over here, more skill leech. Again, this one is just straight up amazing. Activating ignite, which you're doing constantly, increases your armor by 45% for 10 seconds. You're gonna have a big chunk of armor. You're gonna have ridiculously strong, some of the best mitigation in the game, and you're gonna have moves that can absolutely destroy any boss in the game. Trust me, this is definitely worth trying out. Next up, double skill life leech when under 30% of max health. Just means if things are on fire, which you need to make sure anyway, you'll be getting a lot more regen off of them. Really nice, and it gets us to the end where we need to get to anyway. Just over here, enemies afflicted by burn receive 15% more damage. No need to tell you why that's good. Reduce ignite skill cooldown by 15% to get our cooldown as low as possible. Like I said, you'll be hitting a tiny bit harder than me, and you'll be having a lot more kind of cooldown, because I don't think I was able to put my status power and cooldown all the way up as I'd ran out of shards, like I said. And finally, the last node, activating ignite skills increases your armor piercing by 45% and resistance piercing by 45% but for 10 seconds. We only really want that for the resistance piercing, meaning we're going to hit harder, and it just means you tear through bosses so much easier. This right here is an absolutely beast of a build. Now that they've buffed faserbeam, honestly, it's just so fun to use the pyro. If you haven't tried a faserbeam build out, give this a whirl and let me know how you get on. Right, I am sure I have definitely spoken enough today, as that probably took longer than it should have as usual, but this build is so fun. Faserbeam in itself is just my favourite move, hands down, and if anything, I can see them nerfing it in the future. It's so strong, so fun, and I would say you're now one of the most powerful tanky classes in the game. It's just so good to use. If you want to clear content, if you want to play a nice co-op build or a nice solo build, this right here does everything. As always, guys and girls, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on next day.